What are the COBIT 5 enablers? Now, if you see the core, it is the principles, the policies and the frameworks through which lot of things are connected, like your processes, the organizational structures, the culture, ethics and behavior, and then the resources. In resources, you have information is a resource, services, infrastructure, applications are resources, people, skills and competence are resources. Now, the bottom half under resources, if you remember a couple of slides back, we discussed that effectiveness, efficiency, confidentiality, integrity, availability, reliability and compliance are required for 5 aspects, which are the technologies, facilities, people, data and application. So, the bottom half, the one where the resources are mentioned, are for those 5 aspects. Information is a resource, infrastructure, that is technology, applications, facility, that is your infrastructure, it will cover that, people and data is of information, or data is information is derived from data. So, people is also covered, people, skills, competence. So, these are the enablers for COBIT 5. Now, let us look at governance and management. What does governance ensure? It ensures that your enterprise objectives are achieved by evaluating the needs of the stakeholder, the conditions for ensuring that governance and the options for setting directions or guiding the organization through prioritization and decision making. So, basically COBIT will help you to convey what the stakeholders' needs are, what are the conditions under which your objective should be met and what are the options, what directions need to be set for decision making or for prioritizing what has to be done, what, when, why. So, the governance will ensure that. Then the important thing is monitoring the performance, the compliance and progress against the agreed direction and objectives, that is EDM, agreed direction and objectives. Now, monitoring is a very crucial aspect. It is not enough to just implement or to formulate some policies or say that this is what you have to do and then forget about it. You need to monitor whether the processes are working as intended, whether people are following the processes as laid down and whether compliance to regulatory fiduciary bodies are being achieved, whether progress is being made. So, all these things you need to monitor on a constant basis. So, governance will help you to achieve all this. It also helps in management plans, builds new runs or runs, monitors activities in alignment with the direction set by the governance body to achieve your organizational or enterprise objectives. Again, management will plan, they will build means whether it is infrastructure or the direction, whatever it is, it runs that particular plan and then it monitors whatever has been laid down to ensure that the governance body can monitor whether all the organizational objectives have been met. So, in summary, what does COBIT do? It brings together the 5 principles. We have seen what are the 5 principles, which allow the organization or enterprise to build an effective governance and management framework. Based on what? It is based on a holistic set of 7 enablers that optimizes IT, investment and use and benefit of the stakeholders. So, in simple terms, what does COBIT do? It ensures or it gives you a direction for achieving what it needs to achieve. What is it that is to be achieved? Effectiveness, efficiency, confidentiality, integrity, availability, compliance and reliability for What are those? Are the 7 enablers, right? For what 5 principles? Application, technology, facilities, people and data. Now, let us look at COBIT from where it started. In 1996, it addressed the audit aspect. In COBIT 2, the controls are improved. So, you can see that is the evolution of scope. So, it basically started as a audit objective, expanded to controls, further expanded in COBIT 3 to covering the management aspects, further expanded to IT governance. So, you can see the subtle difference in each of the versions. And then finally, in 2012, COBIT 5 covered all of these, that is governance of enterprise IT. So, governance of enterprise IT included all of the 4 things, which is audit, which is control, management, governance, all put together you get governance of enterprise IT. You can read more about COBIT, what it does, what the standard tells you at isaka.org/COBIT. Now, we have seen what COBIT is, but how is it implemented? So, the improvement of government of enterprise IT. So, governance of enterprise IT is called GEIT. There is also a certification by ISACA, which is CEGEIT, which is widely recognized by top management as an essential part of enterprise governance. So, corporate governance of enterprise IT or governance of enterprise IT is viewed by the top management as a very important aspect of enterprise governance. Information and pervasiveness of information technology are increasingly a part of every aspect of business and public life, which is the case now, and they need to drive more value from IT investments. So, you need to leverage IT to perform better for your organization and managing a increasing array of IT related risk, which has never been greater. So, as your network or your corporate IT becomes more complex, the IT related risks also increase. So, you need to drive value from IT by exploiting the technology, at the same time minimizing the risk that the technology brings you with. You need to provide increasing regulation and legislation over business use of information. So, that is also leading to a heightened awareness and importance of using a well governed IT environment framework for managing the IT environment. So, again you have compliance laws, you have regulatory requirements, fiduciary requirements, you have legislations over business use of information. You take an example, can you actually govern a data center which is hosted in Russia, but the actual use is in India? So, which laws are applicable for the data which is residing in Russia, but which is used in India? That is an example of this. So, you need to have more control over your IT legislation, IT use of information. So, you need to have a proper governance mechanism to manage that IT environment. So, you need to address all those factors when you are managing the IT environment. So, COBIT 5 helps you in that. Now, ISACA has developed this COBIT 5 framework. For what purpose? That is to help the enterprises implement sound governance enablers. So, implementing good GEIT is almost impossible without engaging an effective governance framework. So, best practices and standards are also available to underpin COBIT 5. Frameworks, best practices, standards are useful only if they are adopted and adapted effectively. So, it is not just a copy and paste job, you need to adopt the standard to suit your IT requirement, and you need to implement it properly so that you get maximum leverage, maximum benefit out of the implementation. There are challenges that need to be overcome and issues that need to be addressed if GEIT is to be implemented successfully. So, not having just frameworks and best practices and policies and standards are useful only if they are effectively implemented, followed, monitored. Otherwise, your GEIT is not going to be successful. What COBIT 5 does? That implementation will help you a guidance on how to do this, because it will be an iterative process where you can tune and fine tune the implementation and bring it to an optimized level. What does it cover, the COBIT 5 implementation? It covers positioning of governance of enterprise IT within an organization, and it takes the first step towards improving GEIT. Implementation challenges and success factors. It will teach you these are the challenges that I have faced when I have tried to implement the corporate enterprise governance in corporate enterprise IT, and this is what needs to be done to fine tune the process. And you enable governance of enterprise IT or related organizational and behavioral change. So, for any change is something that people in an organization do not want to do. You take for example, an organization in a manufacturing sector or in a pharmaceutical sector have been using a certain software for a certain period of time. Suddenly the management decides that they want to improve the governance, they need to have better control over IT. So, they decide to introduce SAP. Now, the first reaction from the users would be, oh, why the system needs to be changed? Everything is working fine, we are very comfortable with that. So, there needs to be a process to educate the end users on the benefits. So, it is done through a change process, that is, you have to unfreeze the users from the existing environment, you have to move them to the new environment gradually, and then you have to refreeze them in the new environment. So, basically you are telling them, you will have to educate them the benefit of using the new system, in this case the SAP. Tell them why the old system needs to be replaced. Explain to them the governance of enterprise IT, what benefits it could bring for the organization and to the users as employees of the organization, what benefits they are going to achieve. It may be a reduction in the process itself. Then implementing the continual improvement that includes change enablement and program management. So, it also helps in your continual improvement, because it is a iterating process. It is just like the quality process where you do a plan, do, check and act. So, this you monitor and evaluate and then optimize all those things what we learned in a few slides ago will be repeated or iterated over and over again until you get an achievement or a compliance achievement or a satisfactory level of optimization. We will see what is COBIT 5 and its components. Let us talk about 27001, ISO 27001. 27001 is also a standard for information security. Now, the latest version is 27001 2013, the year at which it was released. But what is 27001? It is an international standard that is applicable to all types of organization, commercial enterprises, defense. There are instances where in UK, in the early stages of 27001, a company with no computers have got certified for 27001. That means that was a 2-member organization with no computers on board, but they still got certified for information security standards. So, 27001 covers all types of organization. The predecessor to 27001 was 17799 and the predecessor to that was BS, British Standard 7799. Now, once it became an international standard, it became 27001. There have been 2 or 3 revisions since the standard was implemented. 27001 is an international standard which specifies a requirement for establishing, implementing, operating, monitoring, reviewing, maintaining and improving documented information security management system ISMS within the context of organizational's overall business risks. Now, the entire dictionary, English dictionary is there in this: establishing, implementing, operating, monitoring, reviewing, maintaining and improving documented ISMS. It specifies requirements for the implementation of security controls customized to the needs of individual organizations or parts of that. There may be organizations where certain clauses of 27001 is not applicable, so they need not implement it. There may be clauses where entire bunch of section may not be applicable, so they may not need to implement it. So, the ISMS is designed to ensure that the selection of adequate and proportionate security controls that protects the information assets and give confidence to the interested parties. So, by implementing this ISMS, it gives a sense of assurance to the interested parties, to the stakeholders of the organization, to the customers of the organization, to the users of the organization, that appropriate or adequate controls have been built into which will help the organization achieve IT governance. Again, you go back to COBIT, to have a effective control over enterprise governance of IT. And 27001 is perhaps the only information security standards that cover most of the aspects of a IT environment. Now, what are the high level view of 27001? When you read the standard, it is pretty difficult to understand what exactly is going on in that. There are several controls, 100 plus 133 controls, and these are the objectives and all that. But to simplify it, you look at the slide, I will just explain to you. You need to have a security organization, meaning you need to have a proper forum at the top of your organization which will give direction to the information security function within the organization. Now, in this security organization, you can nominate a CISO, CISO, Chief Information Security Officer. Under him, you can have information security officers. Under them, you can have information security auditors or at the same line, that is for auditing. So, once your organization is set in place, then what you do? You need to have a security policy. What is a policy? We have discussed in domain 1. Now, the policy in simple terms is a statement or intent from a top management on what needs to be achieved or what needs to be followed within the organization or not. It is very simple. When you go out of your house, you lock the door. Why do you lock it? So that the thieves do not come in. Similarly, in an organization, a policy is made to say what you can and what you cannot do within the organization. Now, locking a house is an undocumented policy, it is a practice. So, there are several things in information security which the organization may be doing as a practice, but not actually written down as a policy. In ISO 27001, you write it down as a policy and follow it. So, that gives directions to the organization to follow a better control over information security. So, now after you have written the policy, you classify the asset. Now, asset again we come back, people, process and technology are assets. So, you take an asset, you take a server, that is an asset, you classify it based on what? Based on its criticality to the organization. What would happen if the particular asset is lost? Data is lost. If there is a theft of that asset, if there is a crash in the network or communication line or the hard disk, what would happen? What are the consequences of that? What are the controls you need to put in to prevent all these things? Somebody from physically damaging the server, from copying data from the server. So, all those things need to be specified. Then you specify what are the control requirements, what kind of protection I need for this asset, how much protection is needed for this asset. It again depends on the criticality of that asset. Then you have the business continuity and disaster recovery plan. In the event of a natural disaster or due to a human error or errors in the process or failures of a component, failure of the server itself or the failure of your network equipment or the communication lines, what would happen to the business? How much, what are the contingency plans you have in case that the business or the IT fails? Whether you need to operate out of a different site, that is hot site, warm site, cold site, reciprocal agreement. We will discuss all this in the forthcoming domains, but here to emphasize, BCP and DRP addresses all those things. The contingency plan, the business impact analysis, your disaster recovery plan. So, everything is addressed in this BCP and DRP. Then the communication and network security. What kind of communication links I need? I need 2 ISDN lines, 2 lease lines, I need a failover for one line. So, I need to have a load balancer on my communication, so that my service to the clients or service to the internal employees are not affected. What kind of security do I put in for the network? I need to put in a firewall, I need to put in an intrusion prevention system, I need to put a unified threat management, antivirus. So, that comes under communication and network security. Then the compliance. Compliance with the regulatory bodies, if it is a bank it is RBI, if it is insurance it is IRDA. So, whatever I do within the framework of IT should comply with the laws or regulations set by the government or the regulatory bodies. Then your physical and environmental security, adequate measures should be there. Your servers should be housed in a very secure room with different levels of access control. In big data centers, they may have biometric, they may have proximity cards, or they may have a simple lock and key for a small organization. But then the underlying fact is that you are physically protecting your server and network equipment. Environmental security, that is protection against your smoke detectors, fire extinguishers, all those things you put into place. Properly monitoring and controlling the temperature within your data center or server room, all those will be covered under environmental security. In physical also, ingress of external vendors coming in, whether proper procedures are followed by your security guards to allow entries to only authorized personnel after due verification from the concerned. So, all those things will be covered. Then the personnel security, that is the security of employees, which is perhaps the most important out of all this, because you have to ensure that all employees are safe and they are taken care of as the first measure when it comes to an organizational security. System access control. What are the methods or ways in which a person can access a system? What kinds of control are you putting in for a person to log in into your network, whether it is through a simple login ID or password or through a 2-factor authentication or array or whatever technology, biometrics. Now, those are defined in system access control. These also depend upon the organization's requirement. It is not necessary or it is not laid down that you should have this for getting access to the system. You need to have a minimum set of guidelines and standards that are to be followed for ensuring this. Then if it is an organization with system development, then this clause is applicable, system development and maintenance. What are the methods under which a system can be developed? What are the minimum set of requirements that have to be specified for information security? whether a proper system development life cycle methodology has been followed, how the system is maintained, whether proper change control is there, proper versioning system is there, all those things are addressed in system development and maintenance. And then incident management and response. Incident, what happens in the event of an incident? So, something undesirable happening in an organization is an incident. So, what happens if an incident occurs? How do you manage that incident? What are the processes in which you need to respond to the incident as and when it occurs? The incident can be a simple human error, a server weakness, a natural disaster, any of the kind, but you need to address and document and be prepared on how to react when an incident occurs. What are the main features of 27001? Up to 27001 2005, PDCA was a process model that was used. Now, PDCA was developed plan, do, check and act. It is a quality process which was developed by Dr. Edward William Deming, and that was the model that was followed in ISO 27001. In 27001 2013, it has significantly changed. Now, the process that was followed in up to 2005 was a process based approach, that is, it was following the PDCA model, and the stress was on continual process improvement, and the scope covers information security, not only IT security. So, what does it mean? IT security is any security that is related to the information technology, whereas information security is you cover the entire organization, wherever information is generated, stored, altered, destroyed, in all those places you need to apply. So, the scope covers not only your IT process, but your non-IT process also. Physical access is not an IT process, but it is a process which impacts the organization. It covers people, process and technology. So, we have spoke about that. It covers all the aspects which is people, process and technology, and the latest version is version 27001 2013. Now, there are changes in 27001 from 2005 to 2013. So, we have seen the 11 domains of 27001, starting from security organization to incidents response or incidents management. In 2013, the standard itself has been altered substantially to suit the current requirements. It has been developed using the annexure SL, part of the document published by ISO, which provides the common approach and structure for management system standards. Now, this particular annexure, this was developed using the annexure SL. So, 2013 adopts the annexure SL for implementing 27001, but in 2005 the standard specified the PDCA cycle as the method for developing and continually improving the ISMS. But in 2013 the edition does not mandate the approach, that means it is an optional thing, but 27001 2013 of the standards allow you to use either PDCA or other approaches also. Now, you can use ISO 31000 as an approach for managing your risks, but you can have that in conjunction with PDCA. So, the standard now does not specify that you have to use this model alone, you can use any model that you deem fit for your organization. And the terms and definitions that had come in 2005 edition have now been removed. So, there was a glossary of terms and definitions that were there in the 2005 edition. Now, the 27000 2012 is referenced as the source for term and definitions. So, it has been realigned drastically to meet the ever increasing demands in the IT and also to optimize. So, again the 27,001 25 to 2013 has seen a maturity in how it has to be implemented. The terminology in the standards have also been updated. There were certain definition given for certain terminologies which has been updated to meet again the current scenario. And now there is an increased focus on setting objectives, assessing the performance and metrics in 2013 edition. The risk assessment requirement in the standard is less prescriptive and are aligned with ISO 37000. So, again 37001, as I said in the first slide, is a information risk management standard or international standard for risk management. So, here the standards have been aligned with 31000, so that you get a effective and very optimized level of risk assessment, risk management. The requirement for management commitment have also been overhauled. Management commitment was an impact or very important aspect of 27001 2005, which have been overhauled, and now it is covered by leadership clause. So, anybody having a leadership role in this implementation is what is covered now rather than the management commitment. So, earlier they would say that you need to show management commitment. When you write, how do you check management commitment? The security policy has been written. We see whether it has been approved by the board of directors of the organization. It has to mandatorily be approved by the board of directors also, but then they can delegate this to certain leadership. So, that has been slightly altered. And requirement for statement of applicability, SOA, statement of applicability, have been enhanced, and the risk treatment process makes it easier to adopt control framework other than Annexure A. So, there were specifications in Annexure A that you should have used this particular model. Now, that has been enhanced. Annexure B, there was an Annexure B in 2005 version which has been deleted. Annexure A also has been revised and restructured. Earlier there were 133 controls under 11 headings or 11 domains. Now, there are 114 under 14 categories. You can read about what is 27001 2005, it is a very good reference point to understand what information security is. Then later go on to 2013, so that you will understand the differences between 2005 and 2013 editions, and also will give you a better